Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dan Hurley. I am Chair-elect and a Director with the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance. I'm also Principal with the Hurley Martin Group, a public relations and community engagement firm based here on Gabriola Island. I'm pleased to be your host and moderator once again today, and I want to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish, the Kwakiwak, and Nuchalak peoples. We appreciate everyone joining us here today, and especially we want to thank Vancouver Island University for being our sponsor for today's session. This is now our 11th session in our video series to discuss how we can support each other during this pandemic period and as we begin our journey together along the road to recovery. VIEA's mission is to unite and to connect decision makers and to inform and add to the conversation on economic vitality on Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands region. Over the last several weeks, we've discussed the many programs and supports that have been announced by governments and other organizations. This includes the Coastal Tourism Resiliency Program, launched recently by Tourism Vancouver Island. Today, we are pleased to have Anthony Everett, the CEO of Tourism Vancouver Island, with us to discuss this program in further detail. But before I turn things over to him, a few reminders about our session. We will begin with opening remarks from Anthony. This will go about 10 minutes. And then we'll follow that by about 15 minutes worth of questions and answers. A reminder that to ask your question, please use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, enter your question in, and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as we can during the session. If we are not able to get to your question today, or if you have a further question or comment after the session, please contact our president, George Hansen, at george@viea, VIEA.ca. Just a reminder to please keep your mutes off, keep your mutes on and your cameras off during the presentation. So with all of that said, I now would like to turn things over to Anthony Everett. Over to you, Anthony. Welcome to the VIEA Zoom room.
Thank you. And you can see the screen. Is it sharing there, Dan?
All right, we'll just make sure that we have a presentation here. We'll make sure that you're able to do that. At this point, no, we're not able to see it. Can you try again?
I can. Here we go.
There we go.
Thanks, everyone. I'm having a technical issue here, folks. Just one sec. All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about that little technical glitch. I've done so many of these lately. You'd think I would be on top of that. So I wanted to share with you today something that we've evolved into very quickly at Tourism Vancouver Island, called our Tourism Resiliency Program, Vancouver Island Coastal Tourism Resiliency Program. And this is something we are now doing, and I feel like we're going to be doing it well into the future. It is a very difficult and challenging time in the tourism industry, and I know those of you on the call from our sector, and indeed anybody that when you follow the media these days, I'm sure it's clear as to why things are struggling, and our businesses are struggling. So we very quickly realized that we needed to move in a new direction and help businesses on Vancouver Island involved in the tourism sector as best we could. Our friends at Ice-T have been our champion for many years now, and between us, we talked about ways that we could work together to provide support to tourism businesses, not just now, but hopefully into the future as we go through recovery. I think recovery is quite a bit in the future, and it's going to evolve in the years to come. And Ice-T, the Island Coastal Economic Trust, has been nothing but supportive. I know another organization that we're now working closely with and through this program and in other ways are also doing a similar program, and I would call them companion programs. And that's with Innovation Island, and I think they presented to you previous to this. So a number of our partners in this program are listed here on the screen, including Indigenous BC. Our program, the Vancouver Island Coastal Program, has, like I said, it is evolved. I might have not mentioned this, but it has evolved from a purely island-led project to now going throughout the province as the British Columbia Tourism Resiliency Network. Some of what we started off by doing is, as an organization, was gathering business intelligence. This is, I'm sure, like all of you, feels like It's been going on forever, but it's only been a few weeks that we've been working directly with our businesses to understand the challenges they were facing. As we gathered that work, we quickly realized that we needed to start moving in the direction of new marketing programs for recovery. Business recovery was going to be paramount, and if we were ever going to recover fully to where we were in the last 10 years, the last decade, and we needed to have some kind of ability to advocate for our industry with government, all levels of government, as we move through relief and into recovery. So Tourism Vancouver Island, it's worth mentioning, is part of the network called the British Columbia Tourism Secretariat. We are one of five other organizations, along with Destination British Columbia, that operate in Metro Vancouver area. So as Tourism Vancouver Island, we were the first out the gate because of our partnership with Ice-T, which we're very, very grateful for. We were able to begin surveying businesses back in March. We got funding from Ice-T April 3rd, and we had a live registration form and a live website for our resiliency program. A business can register and then be a part of us helping them pathfind the various government programs. That's the core of what the program is. And we have a number of ways of connecting with businesses. You can see in April we had a webinar. We've done province-wide training now. We're now actively advising businesses and are moving through this program quickly. So our business intelligence was gathering 500 business surveys every week. We were talking to 500 businesses, and any of their information was going directly every morning into the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Arts for my daily briefing with their senior staff. And those challenges led us on to this program. As I said earlier, you know, we know what the impacts are. You can see it on the screen there, with over 53% of businesses closed and cancellations approaching 80%. And those numbers are going higher every day. So this led us to advocate with government about, or work with governments on all these relief programs they've been working through. But what was really needed, the number one issue that came up, was that businesses needed help navigating the many programs that government is unveiling and has been unveiling the last 2 weeks. And so we've set on this journey of pathfinding. We will be doing it for now, as I said, the next 6 months, if not longer. And we are also using expert advice to help businesses as they move through this initial period of relief and then on into recovery. Our program is really set up to be a long-term resiliency program. It provides one-on-one service with the business. So our program advisors are assigned a business, and then we'll work with them well into the future. We are trying to be as we're empowering our staff to be as hands-on, provide as much meaningful support now as possible. Every business gets a program that they can follow, and we help them with in terms of the client care that we're working on right now. And that is working, our program advisors working hands-on through their journey through into the future. And as I keep trying to emphasize here, it is about the long-term resiliency of their business and indeed our whole industry. And you can see that we have a number of experts that we're also utilizing in the program, from HR, finance, public relations, and many more, including digital, which comes in with our partnership with Innovation Island and how we're going to be working together for businesses that are showing their resiliency through e-commerce platforms, et cetera. So our program advisors have an intake, and then they move on through a whole system that helps them, a business, plan out an approach for their future. And you can see a number of the ways that what businesses' needs are right now, from financial help, learning through various government programs, to human resources, wellness, et cetera. Those are all things that we're doing. Our advisor role right now is identifying needs, working with experts to help a business, and then the guidance will continue. We also have a website that I'll show at the end that is a digital resource hub with webinars, et cetera, on it. And the program, to wrap up here, is 6 months program. We have over 460 or approaching 250 businesses registered on Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast. We're actively supporting those businesses now, and it's going quite well at the moment. And we are moving questions that we can answer into government. We have a connection with the provincial government and federal government that we're able to identify gaps and move businesses, or at least mention to government where the gaps are. So there you see on the screen, before I take questions, the website. You're welcome to visit it. As I said, I want to reiterate our partnership with ICE-T and also the good work Innovation Island's doing, and we're working out our partnership with them right now, and it's going quite well. And with that, Dan, I think I will turn it back to you. I hope I met the time frame required.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much, Anthony. That was very, very well done. Just a reminder to everyone, please enter your questions to Anthony in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll get to as many of them as we can. So I'm going to start off, first of all, Anthony, you've provided a good overview of the program and what you're offering. I would just like to get a sense from you, in the short term, what you're hearing from businesses that are in the tourism industry. As we all well know, on Vancouver Island, it is one of our top industries that sustains so many communities, so many jobs. What's your sense right now in terms of what people are going through and what the next, maybe this summer looks like?
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff in that question, Dan. It's not great for businesses. It's not great. Obviously, I mean, every business of every size, and it's not. And so I think what we are hearing is that the government programs, particularly the federal ones that started a few weeks ago now, are starting to crystallize. So whereas 14% of businesses weren't applying to anything when all this started only a few weeks ago, approaching 80% plus are now able to access some kind of program that is helpful to them. So that's the good news. I would say that my day today is, I've talked to many businesses already today that there are gaps still in some of those programs. The good news is we have unprecedented access as an organization to work with our Ministry of Tourism, and they're very receptive. So we have somewhere to go with where the gaps are, even if they're not provincial in nature, they're federal. Those things are flowing in a way that I've never had that access. So I have nothing but good things to say about how our government provincially has been helping us kind of work through some of this. As it relates to now in summer, I think where some of the challenges still lie, and we're trying to work with the ministry on this, is as we've all heard indications from Dr. Henry of things opening, I guess is the way, is trying to understand what that really means in reality for a business that is, has a majority of their businesses from international or US. Those businesses probably are going to be struggling for quite some time yet, and I think that's the reality. So some businesses are choosing just to close for the season. Others are going to try to get some revenue in if they can. I think the question we're all trying to struggle with is, once we can start moving again with social distancing and all those health things in place, what does that mean? How far can I visit friends or family in Prince George, for example? So there's still a lot of uncertainty tied with that, and obviously from a business perspective, that creates a lot of anxiety. I'll end with saying that we all need to know and face the fact that this recovery from a tourism sector point of view is many years ahead of us now, like many years. And I think that's reality. And I think we're up for the challenge. And I hope our small program can help businesses at least survive in the short term so we can get to 2021 and really start building business back.
Yeah, no, it's profound. And I think all of us need to be looking at these things in phases. So we've got a number of questions here. I'll get to as many as I can, some of which you may have answered, but I'll get to them so we can cover everything. This one's from Karen. What would your advice be to vacation rentals, B&Bs, and other owner-operated home-based businesses?
Well, I would hope you come into our program. I think that there's a couple of ways to approach it. One is, what does your business need now in order to create some revenue streams for yourself to keep viability? Right now, the message is stay at home. So we're like, you're not alone, whether you're a vacation rental or a B&B or a big hotel. The problem is still the same for you, is how do you get your customers into your area. So there are a number of digital things that I think that people should be still keeping alive in terms of when it is safe to travel, what like tell your story through digital means. I mean, it might seem like not much, but I think you have to keep some kind of awareness out there, apply to appropriate government programs. And then lastly, be ready with three things when things start to open up. I keep telling this to businesses, just be ready with how do you bring social distancing or physical distancing into your business? You still, I don't think what will be changed, the mandate of 50 or more people, or I think that's the order. There's only a few orders. So how do you meet that need? And finally, what health and safety guidelines do you have in your business around cleanliness and all those things that you're ready to go to open up your business when it is the right time to do so?
Okay, our next question actually comes from Sheila Malcolmson, MLA for Nanaimo. She says, terrific tool. Question for the near term, are you hearing any consensus from your members about restrictions on essential ferry travel for the next long weekend? Any advice you can provide?
So thank you, Sheila. I'm laughing because I managed to speak to Minister Bear yesterday about this. So I've heard rumblings, I'll just put it that way. And I don't want to bring a lot of attention to it right now. I just don't want to mention it other than those sensitivities around ferry, et cetera, have gone into the ministry. We'll certainly do our part to remind people, whatever the health orders are of the day, that's people are required to follow those. But again, we still haven't been told whether we are able to travel for non-essential services. So before the Easter long weekend, we were asked by BC Ferries and others to make sure that we were messaging that it was essential travelers only, and we did our part, I guess. I guess what I was referring to before is I'm hearing rumblings of some unease on some of our other island communities. And so that has been also mentioned into the ministry.
Okay, the next question has to do with driving tour routes. So driving tour routes closer to home seemed to make sense during COVID. Is there assistance from the program advisors or funding to develop a touring product?
Well, it's certainly something we're looking at for recovery in terms of marketing and touring. Again, we need a little bit of support. Right now, the direction we've been given from ministry, and you see it everywhere, is we're not doing any paid marketing. There is no paid marketing happening. We've been, I will say mandated, but we're all not doing paid marketing. So what we are doing is through our Roam BC from home, which we want to then segue into road tripping on Vancouver Island. We need to understand what that means, though. We need to understand, does that mean we can drive from tip to tip? What does it mean? Or we're going to, into the summer, does it mean we can travel a little bit more freely in our closer to home, in my case, Nanaimo area? We just don't really know what road tripping really means yet. And again, I think businesses all have to be ready with their own plans so that they can welcome guests as appropriate to do so.
Okay, this next question from Pat. Many of the fishing guide charter operators are owner operators and as such, the government assistance plans do not really match their business model. Mortgage, for example, which has to be paid in March, is analogous to rent, but there is no program designed to assist. Just one example of the many other needs that are unique to the sector. So what are you hearing in terms of the programs between the CERB, the wage subsidy, the business accounts that have been announced? There are these types of entities out there that may feel that they're not being addressed. What would you advise to them?
Well, again, I guess if you're going to hear frustration in my voice, is we are constantly trying to funnel the gaps, and that is a gap. So what was just said there is a gap. And my understanding as one small little player in this is that that's an unintended gap in terms of John from Tofino called me today. I've never met John. He's a sport fishing guide, and he was telling me about his struggle with the gap in the program, which is every bit of revenue he makes goes back into his business, and the CERB program doesn't apply. My understanding is that is changing, and it's loosened up considerably already. So we need again, if you're a tourism business, I would love it if you were in our program so that we can continue to work with you day after day after day to, as these things change and open up. So that one there should be fixing. My part in this is to make sure that government hears that it needs to be fixed. And they certainly have been told that repeatedly. So that's one thing. As it relates to merge and things, those are new to me. All I can do, and I'm more than happy on my morning call to flag those into government. And that's part of our role, is just to keep information flowing into government for where the gaps are. I guess I would say it's not a great answer, is to stay tuned on, you know, there's two pieces to it. So it's a little bit complicated, but as it relates to, if you're a contract worker, you employ contract workers. And then whether you have a T4 or not, there is some help there. On this call, it's not appropriate, but if you're a tourism business, we would love to see you in our program so we can help keep guiding you.
So related to that, this comes from Jennifer Huffnagel at Innovation Island. Just a couple of quick questions about the program. Is this program free for tourism businesses? Number one, what is considered a tourism business? Can the business have to be only on Vancouver Island? And do you provide funding or just support?
So it's Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast is the area we operate in. It is a province-wide network, so other regions are doing similar. We're ways ahead in terms of our guiding people on the path. It is absolutely free because of the support of ICE-T. As a matter of fact, the experts that we have brought in to support our program advisors, we're paying for, or ICE-T is helping us support the payment of those experts. So HR, finance are two of our expertise now. We're bringing others online. So all those are there. As it relates to tourism businesses, again, our program advisors will help make that determination. It is tourism businesses. You need to show that you're, bringing in a certain percentage of tourism related revenue. And we have criteria that makes you one of our 3,500 stakeholders on Vancouver Island that I won't get into now, but our program advisors can easily work through that. By and large, I think we've only had a few businesses register that really didn't qualify because they weren't really a tourism business. And so I think, again, we're happy to look at those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, next question. Have any efforts been made to reallocate marketing targeting international markets to focus instead on intra or inter-provincial customers for the winter season?
Yes. So our role as Tourism Vancouver Island will be those local markets. We will have a toe in the water, so to speak, around international and elsewhere. Through our partnership with Destination British Columbia, we will always be active in those, but it'll be a very small part of what we do because we need to be there as international markets open up. I think there will be a reticence to travel long haul, at least for the foreseeable future. So it's all about local markets. Again, we just don't have an understanding of what that actually is. I'm hopeful that that here before too long that we will be encouraged to travel on the island or in the inter-islands around us a little bit more freely than now, and that's certainly who we'll be marketing to. As I said before, everything is paused in terms of paid marketing, so we're making plans now and harboring our resources, I guess, for the moment where we will be able to open up and go into the marketplace.
Okay. Next question, is there any news about youth summer sports such as baseball schedules or, say, opening campgrounds?
Well, campgrounds are open as essential service. I think there'll be, and again, that's a sector group, what we call in tourism a sector group, which would be the Campground Association. There is I can't remember actually that's not their full name, but there's an association that has been working with the government around the guidelines for opening and who can come in and not. I heard today that some of those guidelines will include, and if I get asked today, I won't be able to answer because I don't know. The information we're dealing with here is so fast and furious, it's like building the plane while you're flying it, is that tenting wouldn't be allowed in a private campground. One of the questions may come to me now is provincially. My understanding is the provincial campsites, as they're closed, provincial campsites, or provincial parks, I should say, will be among the first to open back up. Again, what guidelines they're bringing in to make that viable, I'm not really sure. And frankly, sorry, I would love to answer about amateur sport. I just can't. I don't know. And the reality is we don't know. Nobody knows very much anymore. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that one.
Okay. We are hearing that a lot of our tourism providers in, this is from the Cowichan Valley, that the refunding of pre-bookings for the 2020 seasons are creating huge burdens on whatever reserves these businesses have. The $40,000 from the CEBA loans is not enough, and it's a loan that will need to be paid back in the future. Can you advocate for different relief for these businesses? You've answered
I'm advocating. All I can say is I'm advocating as hard as I can. You're not alone. That doesn't help you, I realize, but there probably, I don't know what the percentage would be of what you've just described, but that is the tourism challenge. It has been very challenging. I think our provincial government has understood this quite quickly. The federal government has been quite slow in this regard, and I'm not trying to be critical here. I'm just saying that that is something that has been very slow. The seasonality and deposits and all those things have been very, very challenging. And it's, again, I just got off the phone before this call with a business that is facing this exact same challenge, that the revenue you make this season is what sustains you through the winter and allows you to be viable in 2021. The loan is likely not enough. And even the percentage that you don't have to pay back or whatever low interest you can get it's not enough. The only thing I can say is that we're hearing from some small businesses, if they're making the choice to not try to have a season this year, and I'm certainly not advocating either way, that's not my role here, they are able to kind of project through cash flows a season next year. But 2020 is it's going to be challenging. There's no two ways around that.
Next question, how does the necessity to travel in relation to interprovincial tourism jive with what we're seeing as a reluctance by the Islands Trust to welcome visitors?
I see the Islands Trust. Well, I'm a little challenged by some of those. I totally understand it from a community point of view. I've just been, part of an industry for a long time now that we've been working very hard to attract people to all these places. And, I think a conversation for another day is about sustainability and all those things, because I'm quite passionate about those topics. But as it relates to the travel now, I think communities will be involved in those messages themselves as their capacity will allow. And but the challenge is, now that we're telling people we don't want them, it's going to take a long time to win them back. And so that, if you know that going in, I guess that's a decision a community will make. It's certainly not my place to say otherwise, but I think it'll pose yet another hurdle for a business that operates within those areas.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as a resident of a smaller island, it is going to come to a head fairly soon, especially as we get closer to, say, the long weekend in May, and then the weekends going. Those are usually our busiest times of the year. And
I was trying to tap dance around that, Dan, but yeah, absolutely. It's gonna, Easter was tough. The traditional start to our season has changed over the years, but traditionally it used to be that May long weekend, right? And so, and again, all I can offer is our provincial government is well aware of the pressure here, well aware.
So we're going to just wrap up now. There was one question here about information further to the question around fishing guides and so forth. Do you have information or a link that you can direct people to if they're running such an operation?
I can't say it off the top of my head because I don't know what it is, but I do know that there's the Sport Institute. I'm getting it wrong. Sport Fishing Institute, sorry. And that's the sector group that's supposed to represent all these, entities like businesses that participate in sport fishing. And they're the ones that are feeding information into the government around how they can reopen, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't encourage a business enough, if you're in one of those categories, to be reaching out to your sector association.
Well, very good advice. Well, Anthony, thanks so much for your time today. Lots of information in there. Lots of things that are still very iterative, and we'll just continue to be in contact and support each other as we go forward. Yeah,
and be safe. Our hearts with all of you, and it's it's tough. It's a tough emotional time for all of us, and frankly, we're making sure our mental health is front and center in this too, because we're doing our best.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And just a reminder that today's session has been recorded. It will be available on VIEA's website later today. And a reminder that our next session will be next Tuesday, May 3rd at 11:30, when we will welcome Cynthia Lockery of Lockery Communications. And she'll be here to talk a little bit about storytelling through social media, through emails, and through presentations on how to connect with your customers, your community members, and the like. So you won't want to miss that. And please feel free to pass this information on to your colleagues in your networks. You can get our e-newsletter at our website, viea.ca. So until that time, please keep good company, please stay safe, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.